Hello everyone, NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. Thank you for being here. I hope you're doing well. Let us continue with repaying debts of gratitude. Just got off the phone with my mom. That's not part of the Go Show. Yeah, she's 86 years old. Sometimes, you go flip-flop on the big pharma industry. Sometimes kind of feel like, as I get older, that we're all in existence so that big pharma can make more and more profits out of keeping us alive on various medications. What a great profit scheme. But on the other hand, as a Buddhist, okay, make your money as long as I can live long enough to continue talking about Nichiren's doctrine of the Lotus Sutra and get the message out to more people, and in that way influence our planet, move it away from authoritarianship and a more life-giving, life-supporting world policy. Will we ever get there? Certainly we won't unless we try. So if given the opportunity, I'm grateful. NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. There's a big one to chant about. All right, back to Nichiren. I'm quite certain that the merit I have acquired through my efforts is recognized by everyone from the three treasures on down to Brahma, Chakra, and the deities of the sun and moon. Through this merit, I will surely lead enlightenment my parents and my teacher, the late Dozenbo. Funny how that tied into my little personal rant there. Not purposefully done, just a little ominous. He continues, but there are certain doubts that trouble me. So Nichiren is also troubled by things, right? So he's sharing this with his mass of followers throughout Japan. Remember, this is sent by word of mouth, so it takes a while. The Venerable Madhaglayayana attempted to save his mother. Shodai Nyo, his mother, sorry, that was a comma. Attempted to save his mother, Shodai Nyo, but he could not do so, and she remained in the realm of hungry spirits. So she was never satisfied, right? The monk Sunakashta was a son of the world-honored one of great enlightenment, and yet he fell into the Avicii hell, the son of a Buddha, an enlightened one. Thus, although one may exert one's full effort to save others, it is very difficult to save them from the karmic retribution that they have brought upon themselves. I don't like the word retribution there. I would rather, because of its Western connotations, I would rather speak to difficult to save them from karmic effect, their karmic effects, from their causes, right? Their own actions bring about our own actions bring about our own misery, right? We know this. To the depth that they are within our essential nature, they're more or less difficult to expiate, to cleanse, to clear, to modify, to replace with life-affirming karmic energies. Right? Makes sense? The late Dozenbo treated me as one of his favorite disciples, so I cannot believe that he bore any hatred toward me. That was his greatest teacher, right? But he was a timid man, and he could never bring himself to give up his position at the temple where he lived, Seishoji. Moreover, he was fearful of what Kanganobu, the steward of the region, might do if he gave ear to my teachings. And at Seishoji, he had to live in the midst of other monks like Enshi and Jisujo, who were as evil as Devadatta or Kokalika, and to put up with their intimidations, so that he became more fearful than ever. As a result, he turned a deaf ear to the longtime disciples he was fondest of. I wonder what will become of such a man in the future, in his next life, in the future. There is one thing to be thankful for. Kagenobu, Enchi, and Jisujo all died before Dozenbo did. Sorry, couldn't help but smile. And that was something of a help. So he had less intimidation around him. Not that he wished them badly, just, again, that karmic retribution thing, right? The effect of their own causes. These men all met with untimely death because of the chastisement of the 10 demon daughters who protect the Lotus Sutra. That's another way to put it, right? After they died, Dozenbo began to have some resolute mind and conviction in the Lotus Sutra. But it was rather like obtaining a stick after a fight is over, or lighting a lantern at midday. The proper time had already passed. In other words, while he was being oppressed by his surroundings, was the best time for him to stand up to it. He was, as Nichiren describes, timid, so he caved into it. This is no less about the strong forces that were negative around him, but his acquiescence to it is his own effect of his causal karma. So that's important too. Don't forget that side of the equation. He wasn't a victim. He may have chosen to be a victim. That's a very different thing. Do you see? In addition, whatever happens, one ought to feel pity and concern for one's own children or disciples. Dozenbo was not an entirely helpless man, and yet, though I was exiled all the way to the province of Sado, he never once tried to visit me. Do you see? Sometimes when we incur a negative situation, there's a tendency in us to cower away from it and to say, what can I do? These are my circumstances. But you may say this, we may say this, with an intent and an attitude that's defeatist, that says, I just have to accept my lot. But you can also say those same words as a recognition that it's not right. And rather than feel victimized by it, feel an opportunity here to modify your situation, to improve your situation, not to be reckless about it, but to look within yourself as to how is this situation affecting me? How can I modify this effect and overcome it? What is my path forward? Not to acquiesce to this. With wisdom, how do I surmount it? Now that is the perfect cause to take to your Gohonzon, to your mandala, to chant, to focus your Buddha energy into awakening your mind, to cleanse this karma, this cause and effect relationship that has put you in this circumstance. They haven't, it hasn't, those haven't. Those are your environment. So what they're causing you to deal with is of your own manifestation. This is all of Buddhism right here. If you don't like the situation around you, understand that it is a result of your own making, your own karmic makeup. Don't feel overwhelmed by that. Take it immediately to your Buddha nature. How do I surmount this? How do I ameliorate this? How do I protect myself against it? How do I, with wisdom, proceed to overcome and overturn this How do I turn this negative influence into a positive one? How do I make these oppressors my supporters? Because it's all from within your Buddha nature to do. In a way, you should be thankful that you have such an obvious message to your own karmic reality. And this is what Nichiren is teaching here. He never once tried to visit me. This is hardly the behavior of one who believes in the Lotus Sutra. In other words, believes in NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. In other words, believes in one's own true Buddha nature. In spite of all that, I thought a great deal of him. And when I heard the news of his death, I felt as though whether I had to walk through fire or wade through water, I must rush to his grave, pound on it, and recite a volume of the Lotus Sutra for his sake. However, it often happens with worthies that, although they do not think of themselves as having retired from the world, other people assume that they have, and therefore, if they were to come rushing out of retreat for no good reason, people would suppose that they had failed to accomplish their purpose. For this reason, no matter how much I might wish to visit his grave, I feel that I cannot do so. Must have been very painful to have to hold himself back from that act of filial piety to his teacher, simply because he would expose himself to the samurai cults that would use it as an attack against him personally and the Lotus Sutra tangentially. And that he couldn't afford to do that because he was working so hard to turn the tides of authoritarian relationships in his country. There was too much risk. Now, certainly, he took that to the Lotus. He took that to NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, did he not? He wouldn't have just sat back and thought, this is my lot. But the wisdom he had was, in this particular case, I need to do it a different way. Now he writes, now you two, the people he's addressing with this particular Gosho, Jokenbo and Jijobo, which are his names for his inner circle, Nico and I'll tell you later, I don't remember which ones, but I think Jokenbo is Nico, were my teachers in my youth. In other words, philosophically, he's seeing how close these disciples are to his propagation, that he gives them his rejuvenation and his drive to continue to propagate Lotus Sutra. You are like the administrators of the monks Gonsho and Gyohyo, who taught, though they were at one time the teachers of the great teacher Dengyo, later instead became his disciples. When Kagenobu was bent on harming me, and I decided that I must leave Mount Kyosumi, on which Seishoji Temple is located, you helped me escape in secret. You have performed an unrivaled service for the Lotus Sutra. There can be no doubt about the reward that awaits you in your next rebirth. So, you see, he sees life, his disciples' lives, all life, as in service to NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. And this is the way he talks about everything, right? When he talks about Nichiren, himself, the man, he's very humble, I'm just an ordinary guy. But when he talks about himself in service to NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, and his resolve to ensure that it propagates widely, he's a different man altogether, because he's the votary of the Lotus Sutra. There's a division there. that I would suspect most of us forget about when we read about Nichiren, and we tend to, because we tend to put our egos first, we tend to read Nichiren as a statement of ego, but it isn't. And this is a very valuable lesson when you're studying Nichiren, to understand that you are, yes, you're Bob, Joan, John, Betty, Boop, whatever, Sylvain, but that's just our samsaric identification. We are NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. That has a whole different auspices about it. Do you understand? And the more Sylvain can become closely aligned and related to his NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, the more effective Sylvain becomes as a human being. Follow? So, at this point, Nichiren has said enough that he needs to fall into his question and answer mode again, portending that he is actually present in these people's lives and they are interacting with him. It's a very important and critical device in understanding more profoundly what are you talking about, Nichiren, right? Question. Within the 8 volumes and 28 chapters that constitute the entirety of the Lotus Sutra, what part represents the true heart of the work? Because I'm reading all these chapters, and there's a lot to recite and remember and read and dissect and understand here. But where's the meat, right? Answer. The heart of the Flower Garland Sutra is the title Great and Vast Buddha Flower Garland Sutra. The heart of the Agama Sutra is the title Medium Length Agama Sutra, as spoken by the Buddha. The heart of the Great Collection Sutra is the title Great Correct and Equal Great Collection Sutra. The heart of the Wisdom Sutra is the title Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. The heart of the 2-volume sutra is the title Buddha Infinite Life Sutra, as spoken by the Buddha. The heart of the Meditation Sutra is the title Meditation on the Buddha Infinite Life Sutra, as spoken by the Buddha. You see the pattern, obviously. The heart of the Amida Sutra is the title Amida Sutra, as spoken by the Buddha. The heart of the Nirvana Sutra is the title Mahaparinirvana Sutra. It is the same with all the sutras. In other words, if you want to know what a sutra is about, look at its full title, not the abbreviated titles, the full title. Like the Amida Sutra. It's not just the Amida Sutra. It's the Amida Sutra as spoken by the Buddha. If you understand that full title, then how could you follow Amida as the end-all be-all practice of Buddhism? It's not. It's as spoken by the Buddha. That's the heart, right? So be careful when you read to be mindful of what the sutra, the sermon, is about. That's the heart of the sutra. The Daimoku, or title of the sutra, which appears before the opening words, "This is what I heard," is in all cases the true heart of the sutra. This is true whether it is a Mahayana Sutra or a Hinayana Sutra. As for the Mahavarachana Sutra, the Diamond Crown Sutra, the Susidikara Sutra, and so forth, in all cases the title constitutes the heart. The same is true of the Buddhas, the Thus Come One Mahavarachana, Sun Moon Bright Buddha, Burning Torch Buddha, Great Universal Wisdom Excellence Buddha, Cloud Thunder Sound King Buddha. In the case of all these Buddhas, the name itself contains within it all the various virtues that pertain to that particular Buddha. I'm so glad to read that. I've never read that before, and it's something I've been saying for years now. Understand that the naming conventions of Buddhism are about certain mental states, life conditions, potentials of Buddhahood within those life conditions. Take it all the way back to the 10 worlds, and the mutual possession of the 10 worlds, the worlds within the worlds, the 3,000 realms. We keep coming back to this. And these are all verbal manipulations about these innumerable pathways that each one of us has one to take us to our actual Buddha-ness, our Buddha nature. Nichiren goes on, the same then applies to the Lotus Sutra. The 5 characters Myoho-Renge-Kyo that appear before the opening words, "This is what I heard," comprise the true heart of the 8 volumes of work. Moreover, they are the heart of all the sutras, as well as the correct teachings that stands above all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the people of the 2 vehicles, and all heavenly and human beings, Asuras and dragon deities. Page turning karma. Question. If one person should chant NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo without understanding its meaning, and another person should chant the words Namu Daihoko Butsu Kengonkyo, devotion to the great and vast Buddha Flower Garland Sutra, without understanding their meaning, would the merit acquired by the 2 persons be equal, or would one acquire greater merit than the other? Interesting question. Answer. One would acquire greater merit than the other. Why do you say so? Answer. A small river can accommodate the water flowing into it from dew, brooks, wells, ditches, and little streams. But it cannot accommodate the water from a big river. A big river can accommodate the water from a small river with its dew, brooks, and so forth, but it cannot accommodate the water from a great ocean. Now, the Agama Sutras are like the small river with its wells, streams, brooks, and dew, while the sutras of the correct and equal period, the Amida Sutra, the Mahavajracana Sutra, and the Flower Garland Sutra, are like the big river that accommodates the smaller rivers, tributaries, right? But the Lotus Sutra is like the great ocean that can hold all the water from dew, brooks, wells, streams, small rivers, big rivers, and the rains from heaven without losing a single drop. Suppose that a person is burning with fever. If he sits down beside a large body of cold water and stays there for a while, his fever will abate. But if he lies down next to a little body of water, he will continue to suffer as before. In the same way, if an Ichantika, a person of incorrigible disbelief, who has committed the 5 cardinal sins and has slandered the law, should try to cool himself beside the little bodies of water that are the Agama, Flower Garland Meditation, Mahavajracana Sutra, the raging fever caused by his great offenses would never be dispelled. But if he should lie down on the great snowy mountain that is the Lotus Sutra, then the raging fever caused by the 5 cardinal sins, his slander of the law, and his incorrigible disbelief would be dispelled instantly. Therefore, ignorant people should by all means have a resolute mind in the Lotus Sutra. For although one may think that all the titles of the sutras are the same in effect, and that it is easy to chant one as another, in fact, the merit acquired even by an ignorant person who chants the title of the Lotus Sutra is far superior to that acquired by a wise person who chants some other title, as heaven is to earth. To illustrate, even a person with great strength cannot break a strong rope with his bare hands. But if one has a little knife, then even a person of meager strength can sever the rope with ease. Even a person with great strength cannot cut through a piece of hard stone with a dull sword. But if one has a sharp sword, then even a person of meager strength can cut the stone in two. Or, to give another example, even though one may not know what is in the medicine, if one takes a dose of it, one's illness can be cured. But if one takes only ordinary food, one's illness will never be cured. Or, to give yet another example, an elixir can actually increase one's lifespan, whereas ordinary medicine, though it can cure illness, can never prolong one's life. Question. Of the 28 chapters of the Lotus Sutra, which is the most essential chapter of the Lotus Sutra? Okay, so the heart of the sutra is in the title, NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. So which of the chapters, all of these chapters, is the most essential to that goal? Answer. Some would say that each chapter is essential to the matter that it deals with. Some would contend that the expedient means and lifespan chapters are the heart. Others that the expedient means alone is the heart, or that the lifespan alone is the heart. Some would say that the heart is the passage telling how the Buddhas opened the door of Buddha wisdom to all living beings, show it, cause them to awaken it, and induce them to enter its path. Others, that the passage on the true aspect of all phenomena is the heart. Question. What is your opinion? Answer. I believe that the words NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo constitute the heart. Question. What is your proof? Answer. The fact that Ananda, Manjushri, and the others wrote, quote, "This is what I heard." Question. What do you mean by that? Answer. Over a period of 8 years, Ananda, Manjushri, and the others listened to the immeasurable meanings of the Lotus Sutra, never missing a single phrase, a single verse, a single word. Yet after the Buddha had passed away at the time of the compilation of his teachings, when the 999 arhats took up their writing brushes and dipped them in ink, they first of all wrote NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. And after that, they intoned the words, "This is what I heard." Therefore, the 5 characters of NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo must be the heart of the 8 volumes and 28 chapters that compose the work, must they not? So, what Nichiren is saying here is, as you read the Lotus Sutra, and these translations, no matter where you get them, I haven't seen one yet that shows it the way Nichiren describes it, but each chapter is prefaced by NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. They just leave it out of the title, because it's NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, the chapter on da-da-da-da. NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, the lifespan chapter of the Tathagata. NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, what's the expedient means chapter. NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, the chapter da-da-da. This is what I heard. So each of the transcriptions that were made by these great scholars at the time, the 999 arhats, the people who had memorized the sermons from personal learning or sermons from Shakyamuni, who memorized these, reciting them to themselves every day, and for years. In the case of the Lotus, 8 years, Shakyamuni gave this sermon, heard them repeated, recited over and over and over, word for word. When they came down to putting this matter to paper, to record it for teaching history after the Buddha's passing, every chapter was titled NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo this, NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo that. And so when they wrote it down, this is what I heard. So, think about that for a moment. Even in Western context, when we title a work, and remember, all of these chapters, we call them now, were individual works collected under the rubric of the Lotus Sutra. So each of them is a sermon in itself. They all start with, the core here is NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. The aspect of NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo I will now speak about is expedient means. The aspect of NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo I will now speak about is the lifespan of the Tathagata chapter. The NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo aspect I will speak on today is the great merits of a teacher, or of teaching the law. Do you follow? So this is why Nichiren says, so it's quite obvious that the entire Lotus Sutra, all of the chapters, follow the title in saying the culminating teachings of Buddhism, the way to immediately reach immediate and perfect enlightenment, is NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. And under the rubric of NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, the law of enlightenment, of awakening, you can get there through understanding this aspect, this aspect, this aspect, this aspect, this aspect. But they are all aspects of what? NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo is the teaching. It is the Dharma. And so obviously Nichiren understood this. So did Tendai, so did Dengyo, so did Nagarjuna. But in their day, no one would have been capable of understanding what that meant. So they taught support for it all the way until the final years of Shakyamuni's life, where he again attempted to teach the core of his own enlightenment, what it meant to get there and how anyone could do it. That is NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, the Lotus Sutra, or Sadharma Pundarika Sutra in Sanskrit. Therefore, the Dharma teacher Fa Yun of Guangxi Su, and by the way, the reason we chant NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, it's a Japanese phonetic of a Chinese calligraphic translation of Sadharma Pundarika Sutra. The reason we chant NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo isn't because we choose that one over the Sadharma Pundarika Sutra like they would have the same effect. The reason we chant NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo is because our path, our lineage to this great teaching is through Nichiren and Dengyo, right? It's not that we prefer Japan over the other countries. It's that our lineage of teachings, our clarification, our capacity to learn is in the era of NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, of Nichiren's enlightenment, his wisdom, his Buddha wisdom, his clarification of the final and ultimate teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. That doesn't mean we shouldn't study all of the others, but the reason we chant NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo is because it is through Nichiren's enlightenment, his doctrine, his I can't say it now, his obviating of the Dharma of the Lotus Sutra. Through his scholarship, we see clearly the way to attain perfect and immediate enlightenment, as Shakyamuni taught it. Does that make sense? If you think, well, I'm going to chant Sadharma Pundarika Sutra because that's the original, you can do that, but you'll be putting yourself in a place equivalent to the people of Shakyamuni's day, who were not ready to understand the depth and profundity of these teachings. They decidedly did not have the capacity. It wasn't the time or the capacity of the people then. And so you would be practicing in a very odd way and probably missing the ultimate teaching of the NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. You would be practicing an inferior enlightenment. You wouldn't be accessing perfect and immediate Buddhahood. You would be practicing devotion to some inferior Hinayana kind of vehicle. And that would be hit or miss. 1 in thousands that you would actually awaken. Because that was the capacity of people at that time. So we practice NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo because now is our time. the same time as Nichiren's. I know he was a 13th century monk, but he's in the 5th 500 period after the Buddha's passing. Shakyamuni spoke to this directly. And it is we, the bodhisattvas of the earth, we, the bodhisattvas of the earth, who, where's that, 35 minutes? Who have the right time and capacity to understand this final teaching of Shakyamuni's. All right? I want to make that clear. This isn't really a choice. This is the vehicle for us in this time. NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. Therefore, Nichiren continues, the Dharma teacher Fa Yun of Changchi Su Temple, who is said to have lectured on the Lotus Sutra, ever since the distant age of the Sun Moon Bright Buddha, states, quote, the words, "This is what I heard," indicate that one is going to transmit the doctrines one has heard preached. The title which precedes these words sums up the sutra as a whole. So this isn't just Nichiren saying this, right? This is a lot of scholarship going back hundreds of years and longer. The great teacher Tendai, who was present on Eagle Peak when the Lotus Sutra was preached and heard it in person, writes, quote, the word for this, of this is what I heard, indicates the essence of a doctrine heard from the Buddha, end quote. And so this, NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, is what I heard. And the great teacher Chang'an writes, quote, the transcriber Chang'an comments on Tendai's explanation of the title of the Lotus Sutra, saying, quote, hence his explanation of the title in the preface conveys the profound meaning of the sutra. The profound meaning indicates the heart of the text, end quote. So this isn't just Nichiren saying this. It's not just me saying this. This is the scholarship of Buddhism says this is in fact the profound meaning of the ultimate teaching, NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. Everything that comes after that is a dissection of certain aspects of it, which are great to know, but the foundation, the target, as it were, is NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. In this passage, the heart of the text signifies that the Daimoku, or title of the text, is the heart of the Lotus Sutra. As the great teacher Miao Lo states, quote, it is the heart of the Lotus Sutra that encompasses all the doctrines preached by the Buddha in the course of his lifetime. So there it is. The Lotus Sutra, NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, is a culmination of everything over 40-some years of teaching that Shakyamuni was transmitting to his students. India comprises 70 states, but they are known collectively by the same name, or the name India. Japan comprises 60 provinces, but they are known collectively as the name Japan. Within the name India are contained all the 70 states, as well as all their people, animals, treasures, and so forth. Within the name Japan are contained all the 66 provinces, the feathers sent as tribute from Dewa, the gold of the province of Mutsu, and all the other treasures of the nation, as well as the people and animals and temples and shrines, are contained within the two characters that form the name Japan. One who possesses the heavenly eye can look at the two characters of the name Japan and see all the 66 provinces along with their people and animals. One who possesses the Dharma eye can see all the people and animals now dying in one place, now being born in another place. It is like, well, America isn't even the name of, I mean, that's a whole continent, but it's taken by citizens of the United States to mean the United States. And when we say the United States, do we not mean Hawaii, Alaska, California, New York, New Hampshire, Arizona, so on and so forth? All 50 states. When we say United States, we think of that entire landmass, right? Same thing. When we say Lotus Sutra, NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, we include all of the lifetime of teachings. It is like hearing someone's voice and knowing what the person must look like, or seeing someone's footprints and judging whether the person is large or small. Or it is like estimating the size of a pond by looking at the lotuses that grow in it, or imagining the size of the dragons by observing the rain that they cause to fall. Each of these examples illustrates the principle that all things are expressed in one. It might appear from this that the Daimoku, or title of any Agama Sutra, must contain all the teachings of the Buddhas, but in fact it contains only one Buddha, the Shakyamuni of the Hinayana teachings. It might also appear that the titles of the Flower Garland Meditation and Mahavajracana Sutras must contain all the teachings of the Buddhas, but in fact they do not include the doctrine concerning the attainment of Buddhahood by persons of the two vehicles or the Shakyamuni Buddha who gained enlightenment in the far distant past, right? Those are characteristics of the Lotus Sutra. So in other words, they can only represent these all these sutras, and at their point of development can only represent that sutra and what came before that sutra. They don't see into the future, right? Just like when you go and you study for high school and you study mathematics, and then you get to geometry. Well, by studying geometry, you don't understand all of the concepts of particle physics and quantum theory and calculus, right? You understand algebra, which means you also understand addition, subtraction, multiplication. You understand irrational numbers and rational numbers. You understand everything that came before algebra because you needed to learn those things in order to understand algebra. So algebra stands for algebra and everything that came before it. This is the same with sutra. Sutra mean everything that you're learning now built on everything you've learned in the past, but it doesn't take you to future understandings. It cannot, because it too is a step. Okay. They are like flowers that bloom but are followed by no fruit, thunder that rolls but brings no rain, a drum that has no sound, eyes that cannot see, a woman who bears no children, or a person who has no life or spirit. The mantras associated with the Buddha's Mahavajracana, medicine master, and Amida and Bodhisattva's perceiver of the world's sounds, are of the same nature. Though in the various sutras containing these mantras, they are said to be like a great king, Mount Sumeru, the sun and moon, good medicine, a wish-granting jewel, or sharp sword, they are as far beneath the Daimoku of the Lotus Sutra as mud is beneath the clouds. They are everything they need to be for what they are, yes, but they are not the totality. They are not the culmination. Follow? This is very important to understand, because without this understanding, all of this can get very confusing. All of this, Lotus, as well as all of the other teachings, can lead you astray. If you don't understand their relative position, you will be misled. And the misleader will be you, because you will not have a satisfactory understanding, a complete understanding of this doctrine of enlightenment. Doctrine of awakening, as I just forgot his name. Anyway, not only are they vastly inferior, but all of them have lost their respective inherent functions, right? Because we're not people of that capacity anymore. We're well beyond that capacity now. This is what I was saying earlier. This is why we don't chant Amida or Shaddam Pundarika, because they're irrelevant to us now. Now is not the time for us to do that. We are far beyond that. When the sun comes up, the light of the crowds of stars is completely eclipsed. When bits of iron are placed near a magnet, they lose their property. When a great sword is exposed to even a small fire, it ceases to be of any use, right? When you anneal iron. When a great sword is exposed to even a small fire, it ceases to be of any use. When cow's milk or donkey's milk comes into the presence of a lion's king's milk, it turns to water. A pack of foxes will forget all their tricks if they meet up with a dog. A band of dogs will all quake with fright if they encounter a small tiger. In the same way, if one chants NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, then the power of the words Namu Amida Butsu, the power of the mantras invoking Mahavarachana, the power of Bodhisattva's perceiver of the world's sounds, and the power of all the Buddhas, all the sutras, and all the Bodhisattvas will, without exception, vanish before the power of Myoho-renge-kyo. I mean, how more literally does he need to say it? Unless these other sutras manage to borrow the power of Myoho-renge-kyo, they will all become worthless things. This is a fact that stands before our very eyes in the present age. Because I, Nichiren, chant and spread NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, the power of Namu Amida Butsu will be like a moon waning, a tide running out, grass withering in the autumn and winter, or ice melting in the sun. Watch and see. And I think with that, well, I will end this video. Wow. So, nothing could be clearer. I think this, so far, to me, is the meatiest part of this Go Show. But we haven't ended, so there is much more to come, I'm sure. But that was an incredible teaching right there, and I hope it just deepens your confidence in all of this. Again, much appreciation. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to download the podcast so you can listen to them anytime, wherever you get your podcasts. The Buddhahood Podcast, all 3 words. And with that, I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much.